It looked like one former NBA referee has took the gloves off in this gambling scandal. He's exposing everybody. Guys, for this one here,
a former NBA referee just dropped a bombshell that has the entire basketball world scrambling for cover. Officials were actually threatened to go after Caitlin Clark during games, and the corruption runs so deep that even the FBI is now making arrests. This is not some conspiracy theory cooked up by angry fans on social media.
The whistleblowers is coming out of the woodwork. Now, we know Adam Silver was pressed hard this past weekend whenever he was out at games, making an appearance, and they wasted no time at all getting him pretty much putting the camera in his face.
This is real testimony from people who worked inside the system and finally decided they had enough of staying quiet. But here's where it gets absolutely insane. The referee who came forward did not just casually mention this in passing. They provided specific details about how league management created a systematic approach to target certain players while protecting others. Clark was essentially marked as fair game for physical abuse that would never be tolerated if it happened to other star players.
Let's listen.
And Terry Rozier was allowed to keep playing after an NBA investigation ruled that there was no NBA rules violated. What do you make of that decision now amid the FBI's allegations against him?
So what happened was, because bets were placed through legalized legal betting companies, they picked up aberrational behavior around a particular game in March of 23. And so that was brought to our attention by the regulators and the betting companies. We then looked into that situation and were very transparent about it. And while there was that aberrational betting,
the officials were told in pre-game meetings which narratives the league wanted to see play out on the court. Tim Donaghy, the former NBA referee at the center of previous gambling scandals, recently spoke about how this corruption spreads once it starts. He explained that when arrests are made, scared officials start cooperating with authorities and revealing everything they know. The ripple effect becomes unstoppable, and suddenly all the dirty secrets that everyone thought were safely buried start coming to light.
How about now?
We hear you now. There we go. So Tim, how you doing?
I'm doing terrific. Good morning, guys.
Fantastic.
Morning.
Fantastic. Appreciate you for making the time. So what do you think about what's going on here?
You know, I think we're just at the tip of the iceberg. I think when you talk about arrests being made by the FBI, I think the guys that are arrested are going to sit down and, be scared to death with what they're facing, and they're going to start to cooperate, and they're going to tell the FBI everything they know, and this thing is going to spread like wildfire.
What makes this even more twisted is that referees who refused to play along with these unspoken rules found their careers systematically destroyed. They received fewer game assignments, their performance reviews mysteriously declined, and they were essentially blacklisted from advancing in their profession. This was not subtle workplace politics. This was calculated intimidation designed to force compliance with corruption. The pressure was not just about missed calls or questionable judgment errors that happen in every game. Officials describe receiving explicit guidance about which star players should be protected and which ones could be called more aggressively.
Tim, why do you think this is why 2 days before this announcement is made, or even 1 day before this announcement is made, Adam Silver, the commissioner of the NBA, was on Pat McAfee? You think that was intentional?
Absolutely. I think he was trying to, get ahead of the fire a little bit and talk about that they need to get gambling under control. And I think that he's going to continue to try to figure out a way to, to put a lid on this, but it's going to be very difficult for him because I think this is.
So Adam Silver went on Pat McAfee, I'm guessing before all the accusations coming out.
Clark fell into the second category, and the reasoning behind this decision came directly from higher up in the league office. Some insiders suggest it was about not appearing to give her special treatment because of her massive popularity. The most disturbing part of all this is how the league treated Clark's situation as a ratings opportunity rather than a player safety issue. Creating controversy and physical play around her generated attention and boosted viewership numbers, which is exactly what struggling leagues crave. The fact that this put a rookie player at serious risk of injury did not seem to factor into their calculations at all. Officials who have worked in international basketball competitions expressed genuine shock at the operational culture they encountered in American professional leagues. They described being confused by the politicking and relationship management that seems to matter more than actual rule knowledge and game management skills. The focus on manipulation rather than fair enforcement has damaged the reputation of American basketball in international circles. Now let's dive deeper into the specifics, because what happened to Caitlin Clark was not just unfair officiating, it was a deliberate campaign of targeted harassment disguised as legitimate basketball. Throughout her rookie season, opponents could practically body check her, grab her jersey, elbow her in the face, and somehow the whistle stayed completely silent. Meanwhile, she would get called for the slightest touch on defense, often when she was making completely clean plays. The inconsistency was so glaringly obvious that even casual fans who barely understand basketball rules started questioning what they were actually watching. Players with decades of experience in the league publicly commented on how different the officiating standards were when Clark was involved. This was not some subtle bias that required expert analysis to detect. This was blatant double standards happening in front of millions of viewers. But here's what really happened behind the scenes. Referees confirmed that Clark was essentially marked as someone who could be played rough without consequences. The reasoning supposedly came from league management, who claimed they did not want to appear like they were giving her special treatment because of her massive popularity and media attention. The truth is far more calculated and disturbing than that sanitized explanation suggests. Creating controversy around Clark generated essential attention and boosted ratings for a league that desperately needed both. The WNBA had been struggling with viewership and relevance for years before Clark arrived. Her popularity brought unprecedented attention to women's professional basketball, and league executives apparently decided that manufactured drama would keep people watching even longer. The evidence keeps piling up when you look at specific games and situations. Fans have created detailed spreadsheets tracking fouls called per player, analyzing shooting foul discrepancies between teams, and documenting instances where identical plays resulted in completely different calls depending on who committed them. This kind of grassroots data analysis is absolutely damning because it shows the problems are not imaginary. They are real and quantifiable. One particularly egregious example happened during a game where Clark was repeatedly fouled hard on drives to the basket with no calls, while her opponents received touch fouls on the other end. The disparity was so obvious that commentators began questioning the officiating during the live broadcast. That almost never happens because announcers typically avoid criticizing referees directly during games. What makes this situation even more outrageous is how the league handled discipline and fines related to these incidents. They would fine players for social media posts that questioned officiating, but not for dangerous plays that could have legitimately ended Clark's career. The message sent was crystal clear. Protecting the league's manufactured image mattered more than protecting its most marketable player from serious injury. The referee union remained surprisingly quiet throughout much of this mounting controversy. Officials who spoke out did so only after leaving the league, which strongly suggests they feared retaliation while actively working. The union should have been aggressively protecting its members and fighting for objective performance standards. Instead, there was mostly silence, indicating either complicity or complete weakness in advocating for fair treatment. Let's talk about what happened to referees who refused to play ball because the retaliation tactics used by league management were absolutely ruthless. Officials who did not fall in line with the unspoken rules found themselves in professional purgatory. Their game assignments mysteriously dried up, their performance evaluations took sudden nosedives, and their chances for playoff assignments vanished into thin air. This was not coincidental bad luck. This was systematic career destruction. One former official who spoke anonymously described a pervasive culture of fear that infected every aspect of their work environment. Referees learned quickly that questioning certain decisions or refusing to follow guidance about player treatment would result in immediate consequences. The intimidation was not subtle workplace pressure. It was calculated corporate terrorism designed to ensure complete compliance with corruption. But the corruption goes way beyond just officiating games. League insiders describe a toxic toxic work environment where speaking up about any issues means risking your entire career in professional basketball. Coaches have privately complained about being told which players should get more minutes or which storylines they should emphasize in media interviews. Team executives talk about being overruled on personnel decisions because the league office wants to maintain certain competitive balances or market dynamics. This level of micromanagement absolutely destroys the authenticity that makes sports compelling in the first place. When fans suspect that outcomes are being manipulated behind the scenes, the entire foundation of competitive sports crumbles. People watch basketball because they believe they are seeing genuine athletic competition, not corporate theater disguised as professional sports. The most chilling part of these revelations is how referees describe receiving pre-game instructions about specific narratives the league wanted to see unfold. They were not just told to call games fairly and let the players decide outcomes. They were given explicit guidance about which storylines would be most beneficial for television ratings and social media engagement. Clark's treatment was apparently part of a larger strategy to generate controversy and keep people talking. Officials who worked games involving other high-profile players noticed similar patterns of targeted treatment. Certain athletes seemed to receive favorable calls consistently, while others found themselves on the wrong end of questionable decisions game after game. The pattern was too consistent to be explained by random chance or individual referee preferences. This was systematic manipulation happening at the highest levels of professional basketball. What really exposes the depth of this corruption is how international referees reacted when they worked WNBA games. Officials who regularly work European leagues or FIBA competitions expressed genuine shock at the operational culture they encountered. They described being confused by the emphasis on relationships and politics rather than rule enforcement and game management skills. The focus on manipulation rather than fair officiating damaged American basketball's reputation in international circles. The referee union's silence throughout this controversy speaks volumes about either their complicity or their complete inability to protect their members. Union leadership should have been demanding transparent assignment processes, objective performance standards, and protection from retaliation. Instead, officials were left to fend for themselves against a system designed to punish anyone who refused to participate in corruption. Now let's examine the person at the center of this entire mess, because Commissioner Kathy Engelbert's response to these corruption allegations has been absolutely pathetic. Her background as a corporate executive rather than someone with deep roots in basketball shows clearly in how she treats competitive integrity issues as mere PR problems that require messaging strategies instead of fundamental reforms. She talks about record viewership and revenue growth while completely ignoring legitimate complaints about how the league actually operates. When pressed about officiating controversies, Engelbert predictably deflects with corporate speak about continuous improvement and respecting the process. It's the kind of vague, empty answer you get from politicians who know they're guilty but hope people will forget if they just keep talking without saying anything meaningful. She came from the corporate world, specifically from Deloitte, where she was CEO, and her approach to running the WNBA has been heavily focused on business metrics and sponsor relationships. But here's where her priorities become crystal clear. Engelbert seems more interested in hitting revenue targets than fixing fundamental structural problems that are destroying the league's credibility. Television partners are reportedly growing increasingly concerned about the officiating controversies because networks pay good money for broadcast rights. They need fans to trust that what they're watching is legitimate competition, not manufactured drama designed to boost ratings. When social media explodes after every single game with clips showing obviously missed calls or inconsistent enforcement, it fundamentally damages the product's credibility. Broadcasters have quietly pushed the league office to address these systematic issues, but Engelbert appears determined to prioritize commercial interests over competitive integrity. This short-sighted approach might generate immediate revenue, but it's actively destroying long-term trust. The financial relationships within the WNBA raise even more uncomfortable questions about how decisions get made. Referees have indicated that certain teams, particularly those with larger markets or powerful ownership connections, consistently receive favorable treatment from officials. Smaller market teams feel like they're playing a rigged game where the deck is stacked against them before the ball even tips off. Engelbert's office has the power to implement independent oversight of officiating, transparent performance reviews based on objective criteria, and clearly explain disciplined decisions applied consistently across the board. None of this is radical reform. It's basic good governance that exists in virtually every other professional sports league. The fact that she refuses to implement these changes reveals everything about her actual priorities. What makes this situation even more infuriating is how the Wall Street Street Journal investigation into civil rights violations regarding Clark's treatment was essentially ignored by league leadership. Major media outlets don't publish those kinds of serious accusations lightly. They conduct extensive research and interviews before going public with their findings. The fact that such a respected publication felt confident enough to call out potentially discriminatory practices should have triggered immediate major reforms. Instead, Engelbert's office issued a bland, generic statement and apparently hoped the story would just blow over. That response tells you everything you need to know about her leadership style and priorities. She treats serious allegations of systematic bias and corruption as temporary PR challenges rather than fundamental threats to the league's integrity and future viability. The gambling scandal connections make everything infinitely more concerning because when referees have the power to influence game outcomes through selective enforcement, and there's evidence that betting patterns sometimes predict controversial calls before they happen, you've got a dangerous problem that threatens the entire foundation of professional sports. The NBA is currently dealing with its own gambling controversies, and the WNBA seems determined to pretend it's somehow immune to the exact same issues. Tim Donaghy's comments about cooperation with federal investigators should terrify anyone involved in this corruption. When the FBI starts making arrests, scared officials begin telling authorities everything they know to save themselves. This creates a domino effect where each revelation leads to more investigations and more people getting exposed. The web of corruption becomes impossible to contain once law enforcement gets involved. What's absolutely mind-blowing about this entire situation is how preventable it all was. Engelbert could have implemented stronger safeguards and transparency measures that would genuinely protect the league's integrity. Instead, she chose to operate more like a startup desperately protecting its brand than an established sports league committed to fair competition. The secrecy and lack of accountability would never fly in more mature professional organizations. Player reactions to these increasingly damning revelations have been mixed, which reveals another layer of the problem. Some veterans are finally speaking out, frustrated that their careers are being manipulated by forces entirely beyond their control. Others remain silent, worried about retaliation or losing lucrative endorsement opportunities. Younger players often don't even realize how abnormal the situation is because they've never experienced a properly run professional league. The comparison to other sports leagues makes the WNBA's failures even more obvious. The NFL certainly has its issues, but referee assignments and performance reviews are handled with significantly more transparency. The NBA has made genuine efforts to explain controversial calls and publicly admit mistakes. Major League Baseball has detailed protocols for discipline and rule enforcement. The WNBA operates in secrecy and refuses basic accountability measures. Fan reaction to these referee revelations has been intense, with social media flooded with people sharing their own observations about suspicious officiating patterns. The grassroots data analysis being conducted by ordinary fans is exposing problems that league management apparently hoped would stay hidden. When regular people can document systematic bias using publicly available information, the corruption has reached levels that are impossible to deny. The question now is whether anything will actually change, or if this will just blow over like so many other sports scandals. The league needs independent oversight of officiating, transparent performance reviews based on objective criteria, and discipline decisions that are clearly explained and applied consistently. Financial relationships between owners, league management, and officials should be fully disclosed. None of this is radical. It's basic good governance. Sports fans can tolerate many things, but they will absolutely not tolerate feeling like what they're watching is fake or predetermined. Once that trust is broken, it's almost impossible to rebuild. The WNBA deserves better leadership than what Cathy Engelbert is providing. Players deserve a level playing field where success is determined by skill and effort, not by which storylines the league office decides to promote. The corruption allegations are not going away, and this referee testimony is just the beginning of a much larger reckoning. If you're enjoying this content and want to see more investigations into sports corruption, please hit that subscribe button and help support independent reporting on these crucial issues.